So I've been getting a lot of questions over the last year actually about the camera that I'm using when I'm recording most of my action camera comparisons. And a lot of you seem to like the image quality coming from this camera. So in today's video, I want to share my experience using the DJI Action 4, 3 and 2 and just give you my take on these three cameras and how I've been using them and which I've been using the most and which I prefer for different scenarios like hiking, when I'm riding my bicycle, vlogging, scuba diving, snorkeling and so on. Now, when it comes to specs, there's not a huge difference between the Action 2, 3 and 4. It's mainly the optimization of the sensor and form factor. The Action 4 has that new 1/1.3 inch CMOS sensor, where the Action 2 and 3 has a 1/1.7 inch sensor. As of aperture and how much light is coming through the lens, all three cameras have the same aperture of f2.8. But even though these cameras has the same amount of light coming through the lens, the Action 4 is better optimized with a better sensor, which gives each pixel a larger size, which also results in a better low light image. Now, field of view, all three has that ultra wide 155-degree field of view, which looks super awesome and a little bit weird when you take it down under water. So I recommend doing just normal wide or de-warp when you go for a snorkel. Now, the Action 2, however, has that modular design with a lens module as well as a dual screen module and a power module. This makes the Action 2 a little bit more user-friendly in terms of placement and where you can mount this camera. Now, as a resolution and features, all three cameras can shoot 4K at 120 FPS and 4K at 60 FPS in 4:3. As of slow motion, there's no difference either. All cameras have that same option of 4 times slow motion in 4K as well as 2.7K and 8 times slow motion in 1080p. Now, all cameras are also stated to record for 160 minutes in 1080p 30 FPS. However, the Action 2 has that struggle with overheating, even with the magnetic heat case, which is now offered when you get the Action 2. But I will come back to that in a bit. Now, there's also a difference in color profile, where the Action 2 has D-Cine-like, the Action 3 has D-Cine-like 10-bit, and the Action 4 has D-Log M 10-bit. And of course, all three cameras have that normal color profile. This is also something to consider when you're choosing between either of these three. Do you really need that 10-bit or not? And will you bother with color grading, or can you settle with the normal colors coming from these cameras? So when it comes to the differences between these three cameras from DJI, there is not actually that many differences if you're just looking for a camera to record your vlogs, your family vacations, or a simple hike. The Action 3 and 4, however, has that fast charging capability which the Action 2 don't have. But with the Action 2, you can also charge the power or screen module while still using the lens module. And with the price differences, you could also get one of the combos and then the other lens module or the power module if needed, or just an additional power module if you want some more battery. Now, I don't want to make this into a side-by-side comparison, but before I jump into how I use these cameras, I want to show you some clips so you can see for yourself if you can spot the differences between these three cameras. And I've also done my best to make it as hard as possible to see which is which, with some minor corrections only in post, because I think that is relevant. When I edit my travel videos, I always correct and grade the footage anyway. So here's a few clips. Let me know if you could spot the differences. So could you spot the differences between these three cameras? If not, here's the same clips without any adjustments. The first one is the Action 3, the second one was the Action 4, and the last one was the Action 2. Now, talking about differences, using good music and sound effects is the difference between a good and an average video. And thanks to Epidemic Sound, there's no limits to how many or where you can use the tracks. Whether YouTube, TikTok, Instagram or Facebook is your main platform, even your own website, Epidemic Sound got you covered. And you can actually log into your account and add the channel name of your social medias. And if you change this later, and let's say you are creating a new channel, you can go back in and change this if you want to monetize a different channel. And let's say if you're doing some client work and you need the tracks to be safe listed or whitelisted, you can do that as well by uploading the video to the safe list on Epidemic Sound. Now, when it comes to music and sound effects, you'll find more than 40,000 music tracks and over 90,000 sound effects. And by going over to Discover, you'll see featured playlists with the trending songs and even a playlist for viral reels. And one more thing, after linking your channel to Epidemic Sound, you will also get recommendations based on your own uploaded videos, as well as recommendations based on your previously downloaded tracks. Now, if you make a video with a specific style or a mood, or just want to keep the same flow in the background of your videos, the music section has a clean layout which makes it easy to navigate and find the right section you're looking for. And for me personally that loves to travel, I have a favorite travel theme which includes 11 playlists for different travel styles. Now, you can also try Epidemic Sound for yourself, 30 days free of charge with no strings attached, with my link in the description. Now, let's move back to the Osmo Actions and let's find out how I'm using these cameras. Now, when it comes to how I use these three cameras, including the Action 1 and which I've been using the most, I've actually been using the Action 2 the most. For some reason, it has been my main camera for recording all these comparisons, especially after I got my bike. It has a smaller form factor and doesn't necessarily require an SD card in order to shoot videos because it has that 32 GB of internal storage, or actually 22.4 GB because of the firmware and future updates. So yeah, this has basically been my go-to camera for the past year or so, and I haven't really thought about it until I went through the comments and saw a lot of you asking about it. And I haven't made a video on the Action 2 in a long time, so I think this was the perfect opportunity to put some light on the Action 2 as well, because it is a really good camera, but I think it's a camera that also has died out. And it's basically become that camera that sits on the shelf or that no one talks about, because it had some serious overheating issues in the past. It still has, which is sort of what pulled people away from this, unless you're flying FPV, of course, because then you have that constant airflow on the lens module. Now, compared to the Action 3 and 4, there's also a price difference. The Action 2 starts at $299 for the power combo and $399 for the dual screen combo, which is the same as the Action 4, and the Action 3 has a price tag of $329 US. Now, just to put things into perspective, with the Action 2 at $299, you will get the lens module and the battery module for $100 less than the Action 4. So if we look at the Action 2 and 4 side by side here, is the differences worth $100? For me, yeah, because it has that better low light image, but if you're just looking for something good which is less expensive, the Action 2 might be enough. So let's talk about the use cases and how I've been using these cameras and which I prefer for each scenario and why. And hopefully I can help you in making the right decision, even though I think you won't go wrong with either of these cameras. It's mainly going to be personal preferences. So what do you prefer and what are your needs and where will you be using it and so on. Let's start with some traveling. If you didn't know already, I love using the Go 2, the Go 3 and the X3 when I'm out traveling. But just like the comparison videos I made, I also enjoy using the Action 2 quite a lot when I'm traveling to show you the behind the scenes footage of how I'm using different accessories or anything similar to that. On my previous trip to Hawaii, I was actually using the Action 2 more than any of my other cameras in combination with the Insta360 X3 because it has that wider field of view, and the fact that it has a screen, I could easily check the footage. Now the Action 2 is also a smaller camera with less weight to it, so it's gonna be easier to mount and wear compared to the Action 3 and 4, which is one of the reasons I ended up using the Action 2 more than the Action 3, even though they all have the same magnetic mounting system. Another way I've been using the Action 2 is with my FPV drone, though sadly I lost this in Hawaii and I haven't picked up a mount for the Avata yet. And I'm not sure if I will either, because I think the footage coming from the Avata looks amazing itself. But from the release of the Action 2 a couple of years ago, I've been using it every single time with my DJI FPV drone. And as you've seen earlier in this video, I've been using it quite a lot on my helmet as well, so I guess I've been using it more than most of my other cameras, but it's just like the Go 2 and 3, it's not gonna be the first one I grab. Or I guess maybe it is, but it's not my intention though, and it's just that this has become my main camera for behind the scenes, I guess. And also looking through all the footage I captured with the Action 2, it actually looks pretty good. Now as of the Action 4, like I said, I will use this in the same scenarios as I've been using the Action 3. So whenever I'm out with my bike and I'm not shooting content for a video, or if I just want to take you guys along on a ride, the Action 4 will be my main go-to camera because I get better quality and it's easy to swap between different mounts on my bike, and the option to change from vertical to horizontal aspect is still amazing to this day. And for those times I'm going through different scenarios like a bright to dark environment or something like that, I will always bring the Action 4 because it has that better low light capabilities than any of the other action cameras that I have. Now let's talk a little bit about the Action 2 and overheating, which has been a huge problem for a lot of people. So with the Action 3 and 4, the overheating has not really been a problem because it has been better optimized than the Action 2. But to be honest, it really comes down to how you use it. My Action 2 has only overheated once, and that was when I was using it as a dash cam in Hawaii. But like most other cameras, as long as you have some airflow cooling the camera, it will most likely not overheat. So doing activities like snorkeling, paddleboarding, hiking, vlogging on your motorcycle or whatever, the Action 2 has no issues. Like I said, this has overheated on me once when I was actually pushing it through its limits, and that was when I used it as a dash cam in Hawaii in the soaring heat, and it just died after like 1 minute 30 seconds or something. Now there is one thing though I wish DJI could actually add to the Action 2 because they are still selling it, and that is the noise and sharpness feature, which will make the footage coming from this look much better. I still think it's a bit too sharp, just like the Action 3, and I prefer to add my own sharpening in post rather than being sort of limited by a company. Now, whether or not the Action 4 is worth the hype and the $100 extra compared to the Action 2 power combo is individual, but I am also curious to know your opinion about this, so let me know your thoughts on these two and these three cameras down in the comments below. Now, even though I haven't really thought of it, I obviously think that the Action 2 is a fantastic camera. You know, otherwise I wouldn't be using it this much. I used it for every single trip we've been on, and I'm not using it daily because I have other devices I prefer, like the Insta360 X3 and the Insta360 1-inch model, but you know, for doing that behind the scenes, or when you are flying your FPV, or if you just want something which is really good but is not gonna drain your pocket, then the Action 2 might be the perfect camera, even though it's a little bit old now compared to the Action 3 and 4 and other cameras on the market. It's still versatile, and I still prefer to use it for those behind the scenes shots, and I think it's a fantastic camera. You know, otherwise I wouldn't be using it every single trip and so on. So yeah. So there you have my sort of comparison review of these three cameras, the Action 2, Action 3, and the Action 4. If you already have the Action 3 though, maybe consider your needs before deciding on whether or not that you should upgrade to the Action 4, and if that is worth or a worthy replacement of your Action 3. Do you need that 10-bit D-Log M over that 10-bit D-Syn like which the Action 3 has? And will you actually be shooting a lot of low light footage? If the answer is no and no, well then you might as well stick with the Action 3, because if you don't see the improvements relevant to your needs, yeah, then you know the Action 3 is more than good enough. It's more than what you need, and it's exactly what you need. But if you see the footage being a little bit better and you wish that you have this, well then maybe sell your Action 3 before you get the Action 4. But I've seen a lot of people saying that the Action 3 still looks better than the Action 4 because it's a little bit more contrasty than the Action 4. But this is also adjustable in post by taking the midtones down and so on, so you can achieve the same look with both of these cameras. Now, another factor to consider as well is also the compression going on YouTube when you upload your video. And this is going to be personal to your eye, whether or not you see a huge difference between these, because it's going to be different for every person. I personally like the Action 4 more than the Action 3, and I kind of like the Action 2 a little bit more than the Action 3 as well, but that's my personal opinion. But like I said, YouTube has that compression, so it's going to compress the footage anyway, so you might see similar footage to what you're getting from the Action 2, 3, and 4. But regardless of which camera you have or decide to get, the Action 2 is still rocking it as a versatile little magnetic camera. So that wraps it up. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to drop a like down below, and if you are new to this channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on the next video. And I will see you guys in the next one.